So recently I updated my animated menu pack from 7 to 12, so I added 5 more. And if you click on live demo, you can now check the new modern menus in this one. I've already created the first one and second tutorial. So for this one, I've created this tutorial already. I've also created this like cascading door or Japanese style kinda menu. And in this video, we are going to create this one, which is cool. You could see the hover effect and the spinning effect. It closes like this. In the next videos, we are going to see this one. And in the next video, we will see this one. If you have already purchased this in the past when there were only 7, you can actually download and get this for no additional cost. But if you want to get it, you can get it now. I'm going to make the modern menu in this page. Basically, this is my website where I haven't installed Elementor Pro, just to show you guys that it works without Elementor Pro. But if you are planning to get Elementor Pro, consider using the link in description. That way you support me just by using the link in description and like clicking that. And after that, if you want, you could register it or get Elementor Pro. So if you register in Elementor Pro, you can get access to this library. So use the link in description to register at least, or if you're not planning to buy, but if you're planning to buy, consider it. That just supports me to make more videos like this, especially on Elementor. So I have my header container. It's basically, it goes from left to right and has like 2 containers, which is like left and right elements. It has been given 50 padding on the right and 50 padding on the left. So what we are going to do is we are going to create like a different container in which we will start creating our menu, and then we are going to move it above this container. If you want, you can make it inside of this directly, but I think there might be some issues that you might or may not face. So just try it inside of this header, so it's like a much more concise. But if it does not, then use this method. So I'm just going to call this as, I guess, menu container. I'm going to make sure that this one also has the same styling as the above one. Actually, this does not really matter if you're trying to have sticky header. So for now, if you check in this page, you could see it is not a sticky header, it is a static header. I'll show how to do for sticky header, and if you're using sticky header, it is also easy to implement. But just make sure that if you're using sticky header, you do not really need to do that. But even if you do that, it's not an big deal. Inside our menu container, we will add an HTML widget. This HTML widget will be our hamburger icon, which is this icon. So this code would be in description. Select your HTML widget and paste it. I'll call this as menu icon or hamburger icon, whatever you want. It's not being visible because it is in white color. So if I scroll down into this one, I can make the background color to be red in this first line 6 for temporary purposes so that we can see it. And if you want to learn how to customize all this stuff, I actually have a video link in description which shows how to customize it so that you could make it look like however you want around here like this. So just play around with it. I'm going to select my menu icon, go into advanced and select end like this. Then my next step is to add this stuff, which is this whole container. So let's start doing that. So in our menu container, let's create another container. I like to call it as menu wrapper, something like this. We will give it minimum height, but again we will remove this later. If you don't remove this later, it would not work. I'll give it a black color like this. Also give border of 10. Now one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this menu wrapper have position absolute, and then also give it something like 95 Z index so that it is above everything. And now one thing that I want to tell you guys, okay? So whether you're doing position absolute or position fixed, because if you're using position fixed, for example, if I select my header and then probably if I go into advanced and then give position fixed, give it, I guess, 96, something like this. You could see it is now above everything. I'll need to make it white background. So this is how sticky header is there. You can obviously go in here and then do motion effects to sticky top if you have Elementor Pro. And I think if you do sticky top, it's a better way to do it. In that way, if you do it that way, then you don't really need to have like different container. You can actually keep it inside of this one, but it's like very case by case. For some people it has worked in like the same container, and so for some people it just works in other container, and I don't know why it happens, but again I'm showing both the options. So just know that if you want, you could use sticky header, but if you do not have Elementor Pro, you could just do position fix. It's going to be sticky like this. But for now, I just want to show for the static, and then I'll show for sticky later. Now our menu wrapper is 95, our header is 96, and our menu icon should be the highest one, right? So let's do 97, why not? You could even do like 99997, okay? Because some themes might be adding like lots of 9 in the index by default. Now I'm going to go into my menu wrapper and make this 40%. And I'm also going to make it go from the right side. Now if you guys know how position absolute works, it is this right side and top is based on this container, right? Because that's the parent container, because this one is inside this one. So let's say if I go down just to show an example, do I have a thing? Okay, so let's say if I use this button to show the example, this button is inside this container, right? So if I use position absolute, it goes to the top left of that container, right? Without, it does not take any like padding, or it does not check anything padding. It does not take how many elements are there. It just does its own thing without taking any space. And if you do fixed, it basically takes the whole screen size, okay? So like this. So if I do right, it is going to be on the top right and all this stuff. So similarly, what I've done is I've given it position absolute around here, and then it's given 0 and 0, so it's at the right of this container. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my header and going to give it like 120 padding on the right side, and I'm going to just move this stuff above. So let's go into menu icon, go into margin and give it, let's say minus, let's give it like minus 100. That's too much. Let's give it minus 80. So minus 80 works. And I just did is because it is in different container, I can just move it above like this. Now our menu wrapper is going to be a bit different. For menu wrapper, I can actually just go in top like this, and we need this one to be bigger than our header, right? So let's make it, I guess, 96. Okay, so it's bigger than our header, and then let's make this go up like this until it works. So let's do, let's say minus 90. Why not? Minus 90 works, and let's do 50. Let's do 40. Okay. So this is how it's looking. So just remember that any styling that we are doing right now is for the opened one and not for the closed one. Just keep that in mind, okay? So this is how it's going to look when it is opening. Don't worry about this size, okay? I have added it in the code, so I'll show how to edit that code to make it to your liking. But for now, this is just for our testing purposes. Also, you could see that this menu is this button has like thousands index, so it is being above this stuff, which is why it's good to give like say 999996 like this or something. Now instead of this, I'll add my headings, and let's call it home, and make sure to do this as P and not as H1 H2. And I don't know why you would even have it as H1 H2, especially if it's not going to be good for SEO, right? So okay, so we added the heading home P. Let's do white color. Let's make this bigger. Let's make this Oswald like this, and do all the styling to your own liking. In our menu wrapper, I'm just going to make it go at the bottom like this. Another thing, by default, Elementor adds 10 padding, right? Like this. I actually want to do 0 padding simply because it makes the work easier. You could add padding too, but when changing the values so that it looks nicer, you might need to play around with it a bit, but again, it is your choice how you want to do. Making 0 would just work better. And give this heading like a margin of 550 so that it is like spaced around here. I'm going to do is duplicate all this stuff and give this the names like services and all on. And I can go into this and give it, let's say 50 margin at bottom, or I could go into my menu wrapper and probably just add a spacer. Why not? and you could see we now got some spacer at bottom, so let's do 50, why not. Instead of this one, we need to create our second stuff, which is this icon animating. For that we need to add an image. Select that image, whatever you want. I'll use my logo. Because we are going to use smaller image, we can just choose the thumbnail. By the way, all of these are like copies. WordPress automatically creates like different copies with different sizes. So if you use 150 by 150, it's going to take like, it's going to like load faster than loading like this bigger one and making it smaller, right? So let's give it 100 width, and then here we will control the size of it. So let's do 50, 80, something like this. Now this is taking space. I don't want it to take space, so let's give it absolute. You could see it's at the top. Let's give it right bottom. Let's do 20 and 20, something like this. Next is simple. We just need to give everything the CSS classes. So this DM menu icon 6, it's obvious we will give it to the menu icon. This DM menu 6 PG, we will give it to the menu wrapper. This menu 6 title, we will give it to all our titles. I'm just going to do paste style so that it automatically adds to every single one of them. Just make sure it is actually being added, just in case it didn't add it. And then this DM menu 6 spin, I'll give it to this icon so that it spins. Now what I'm going to do is, in this menu container, or you could even create another container, I'm going to add another HTML widget. This HTML widget would contain all the code like GSAP code and animation code, so that when you click, some stuff happens. Actually, before doing that, we will go to our tablet and make sure it works nicer. So go to a menu wrapper and then make this, let's say 80. Go to my mobile like this. For mobile, you could see it is looking off, so we can actually go into our menu container. For the header also, we will actually, if it looks a bit weird, we can just hide it so that we can actually customize it first. And you will need to like make the settings nicer, so like 2020. Obviously you would not have like double menus, I think, but just for this video purposes, I'm keeping here. I'll go into my menu container now. Also make this like 2020 so that this is around here. We can give our header like specific height so that it is always going to be perfect instead of doing all this stuff. So you could see now it is looking good. If you want, you could even like add different margin values around here to make it go around here. Now for the menu wrapper, I will also make this look nicer. So 20 looks good. And I'll also make this one be smaller, like 89, 90. You could even make all of this smaller. You could even add like different padding or margin like this so that it looks better. And then just do copy and then paste style for everything. So you could see this is how it's going to look in our mobile. Again, this is not the actual height, just keep that in mind. Once you have done all the settings, we will go to our HTML where we will add our code. So this one would have our code. Now here's one thing I want you guys to do. So instead of copying the whole code, just copy till the style tag. So this /style, you see /style, just copy it till then, and see this is how it's looking right now. Okay, one important thing, remove the margin, remove the minimum height completely. If you don't remove this, there would be like weird space in between, because even when it is getting like smaller, it will be taking like 700 pixels or whatever you have set. We don't want that, right? So just make sure nothing is added, or you could even add 0 in here. So there is some stuff that I need to show in this code. So if you check in here, I have set a height in here. This height is different than this one because it says minimum height and this one says height, where basically it would not go bigger than this one, but if you type minimum height, it can get bigger than that one because it's saying that it should be minimum of that height, but it can be bigger. But when you type height or you type max height, then it will not get bigger than this. The way this works is that it is doing calculate 100 VH minus 20 pixels. It is taking 100 VH, which is our screen size or screen height, and doing minus 20 pixels. So it is taking like from this point to this point height and doing minus 20. So if I do, let's say, minus 50, minus 100, you can see the difference. It is doing minus that stuff. So again, it's your choice what you need to do or what you want to do. Then if I hover on it, it is basically making it look like this. Letter spacing, if you make it to 5, then it would be less and kind of subtle. If you add links to it, if you add like a link to it, it will basically, so in case when you add a link, it is doing some weird stuff like this where it is not going nicer. It's basically because Elementor has added the code. So you simply need to copy and you just need to type this stuff. Okay, so DM menu 6 title space A transition none exclamation point important. I'm not adding it because it's very like case by case and I don't want to mess something up in case it's working. But basically DM menu 6 title space A basically means that anything that has a link to transition none, and then exclamation important basically means that if anything else is added, just make sure to use transition none instead and ignore everything else. So just copy this, paste transition DM, and then you could see now it looks nicer even when you add a link to it. Next thing is spinning of this stuff. You could say it is not actually spinning because if you go to this animation play state, it is set to pause. The reason why I have kept it pause is because it kind of conflicts with GSAP. So it's better to make this animation play when our GSAP has been done. So which is why I have kept it to pause. If I remove this, you can see the effect happening. Basically, if you make this to be 1 second, it would be faster. If you make this to be higher value, it would be slower. And if you want, you could even do like a different animation. So you could say keyframe DM spin. This basically rotates it once, full rotation in every 10 seconds. But you could even add like your own animations if you want to make it go like up and down, floating and all. I'm going to just keep it to be paused. Now, before we add all our stuff, right? Before we add all this second code, which I'll paste in here, which is our JavaScript, right? If you scroll down in our script, you would see there's something called responsive absolute values, and these values are actually for this stuff when it is closed, right? So when it is closed, it needs to actually go at this location perfectly around here, and that is based, and that could be different for tablet, mobiles and your desktop, right? So this is for the desktop, this is for our tablet, and this is for our mobile. You could say it says right top and right top. If you go to our this stuff, if you go to our menu wrapper, you could say this is right 40 and top minus 90. So how do I know which values to use in here? And that's an easy way to do it. I know it's a temp. Even if you buy the template, it still needs to be done that way because most of the stuff is done, but because of like nature of headers being different for different people, it needs to be done some changes. There needs to be changes. I'm going to remove this code completely from here. Right now we need to get the values which we need to use around here, and for that what we need to do is we need to make this container as if it's closed rather than open, right? So let's go to our code at the bottom, and if you look in here, what this basically does is that whenever it is closing, it takes it to this size, which is width 90 pixels and height 70 pixels. So let's go to our this stuff menu wrapper. Let's copy our menu 6 PG, this CSS class. We can type in here. This is just for getting the values, okay? Style. This basically allows us to add CSS. Let's do dot and give it the height and width that is provided in that code, okay, which is 90 and 70. And by the way, you can change these values to your liking. So whenever it is getting smaller and big, so whatever value that you use around here would be the size when it is smaller. And but remember one thing, that if you are using different values, the values around here should also be changing based on what you're doing. So right now I'm going to use the values which are like this stuff, 90 and 70. So let's do 90 pixels and let's do 70 pixels. I did opposite, so let's do like 70 in height and 90 in width, and this is how it's looking currently. So what I need to do is I need to get these values, which is right top is -90, and add it in this one. So for my desktop, my DM menu top 6 should be -90 pixels and the right should be 40. So let's go in here and add 40. And remember to do this before adding the code, because if you add the GSAP it gets harder. So only have like this code, and if you accidentally added the GSAP code before, then do publish, refresh it so that it does not load the GSAP code anymore. Okay, now let's go to a tablet. 4090 also works for my tablet, but in case you are using, let's say, different values, then you will need to use these values. So it looks nicer. So let's do 40 and -90. Let's go to mobile. Again, we can actually just hide everything instead of this one in case it is like looking weird. This now you could say it is not looking good. So why is that? Let's try doing 10. Okay, my offset 10 works and -90 on top works. For you it would be different. So I'll do DM menu right to be 10, and here it should be -90. By the way, this would be different if you are using position fixed. Okay, these values would be different if you are trying to make it for sticky one. Now I just need to do is go back to this stuff, go to my code, remove this stuff completely. Let's make sure this is visible, and let me do one more test to see if it's working or if it's at the right location. Yes, it is at the right location. It is looking perfect without any code. So when there's no code, it is looking perfect. Let's go and then add the code. Let's do preview once more. Okay, it is looking good. Let's try. Let's do preview and let's see if it looks nicer. If I click on this, it is going there. If I click again, it is going to that location. So see, all we simply did was find the value which is supposed to be set when it is around here. But remember, this is not a sticky one yet. If we want to do sticky, we will need to do just one simple step and change the values to that value or whatever you're using. But one more thing that I need to check is if I go to my menu container in here, if I let's say make this a red color, if I close this, okay, it's not taking any size. Okay, so just make sure that it is, when you close this, it is not taking any space. In case it is taking space, what you could do is, for safety purposes, just make this 0, make this 0, and make the top and bottom 0, and that way it would be not taking space even though it's there. And you could say it just works nicer. This stuff also works. Now how can we change it so that it is sticky? Now to do sticky, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my header and going to make this fixed. If you want to use this motion effect, which is like Elementor Pros, then you could also do that. It's completely okay. And you could see now it is being sticky. Now if I go to my menu icon, let me hide my menu wrapper so that we can see. We will also make this fixed like this and make it go at the right top. It's not being visible. Let's move it. You could see it is being actually behind our header around here. It's behind our header. Our header has 96 Z index. This one has 92. So why is it being hidden? And the reason why it is being hidden is, previously we used margin. When we are using fixed, we do not really need to use the margin and all method, because it's going to just follow right automatically. Just play around with the values until we get something that looks nicer. So 50. So even though this header and this menu is in different container, they look like they are at the same location, and it just makes it easier for you to like give the index or overlap them on top of each other if they are in different containers. Then for my menu wrapper, we also need to give this position fixed instead of absolute. And before we do anything, I'm going to remove the code and refresh my page for one simple reason, because right now the values that we have given would not work. So let's say if I just keep it like this, I simply just made this fixed, right, and I've kept the values same. What would happen? Let's see. it's now like at completely different location, simply because the right and that this values has been different. So let me copy this, paste it in here. I'll remove this code completely to publish and refresh the page so that it removes the code. So now I have refreshed the page. If I go to my menu container, if I go to my menu wrapper, if I make this to be 0 and make this to be 0, you could see now it is perfectly so now you could see it is being perfect. It's not being different because now it is based on the page instead of the container, which is why when you're using position absolute or fixed, it matters what you're doing or how you're doing. Okay, so if you're using 20, let's do 50, 40 from the right, and then I don't know, 20, let's do 10. Okay, so this is how it's going to look in the fixed version. If I go to my tablet portrait, 40, 10 looks good. If I go to my mobile, then I need to change the values of this stuff. So let's make it 10, and I think that looks better like this. Now remember the method that we used to find the values which were around here, which were supposed to be added around here. We do the same step again, and instead of using like the position absolute, we are actually using this stuff, right? So it is going to be similar method, everything's same, but just the values are different. So let's do dot and let's get the height. So in our code, the height is set to what? Where is it? 90, 70 height, and width is 90. And you could see this looks good enough. So our menu wrapper, it is set to what? 40, 10. 40, 10 looks good. And around here, 10, let's do 0, 10 looks better. I don't know why 0, 10 is looking better. We can do like 10 and probably make this menu icon also be like 20, so that there's some space on the right. So our menu wrapper has 10, 10 for mobile and 40, 10 for this one. So again, the same stuff that we need to do. So the right has to be 40 and then this one has to be 10. This one is supposed to be 40, 10 and then 10, and then for mobile it should be 10, 10. That's all I had to do. If I now copy, paste into this code, I'll just repress this stuff. Let's do preview and hope it works. If I scroll down, it has been sticky. If I click in here, it has been sticky nicely. And again, if you want, you could even make only this parts fixed and everything else just be static, so only this stuff follows. And you could see, looks nicer. It just works. And yeah, I know there is some roundabout ways to doing stuff, but again, that's like most of the stuff has been done. It just takes like 2 or 3 minutes to get the values. So yeah, that's all. If you want to get the template, the link is in description. And yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.